It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. And if you're not watching the show over there already, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Also, follow us wherever you're listening to the podcast as well, like on Apple, Spotify, and leave a 5-star review there as well. Also, if you go check out the description of each and every show, you're going to see all the links to our special sponsors. But also, you're going to see, as of starting last week, Rocking Around the 412, year 8 of Rocking Around the 412. If you're not aware, that is our Christmas fundraiser that Smitty and I put on every year. With the help of everybody that donates and gets involved with the fundraiser, we were able to provide children in the Pittsburgh area the Christmas that they have always deserved. Christmas that Smitty and I never had to worry about where it was coming from growing up. So we want to be able to give back. Again, like I said, this is year 8 of this. We've helped 177 kids in total. The GoFundMe link is going to be in the description. And then later on in the year, probably sometime in the fall, we'll be getting involved with the East Rochester Salvation Army Angel Tree, where you could adopt kids off of their Angel Tree and get the tags for them as well. So there's a couple ways to get involved. The one right now that you can get involved with, thankfully, because we fixed it, is the GoFundMe. So if you want to check that out, link is going to be in the description of each and every show going forward.
Yeah. Don't worry. Despite what the GoFundMe description has to say, you'll be eligible to win prizes if you donate at least $10. That's a new thing. Person I was chatting with on GoFundMe told me, like, she thinks it's stupid too. But they literally, for whatever reason, within the last year, you're not allowed to say within the description of your GoFundMe that you can win prizes or anything like that for donating. So we had to take that out of there and now make a disclaimer that not only can it just say nothing about them, I literally have to put in there that you can't. But don't worry, that's not the case. As you guys know, we're going to talk about it on here. You will definitely be eligible to win prizes. We just in print cannot say that on GoFundMe, which, is kind of why I like to not even have GoFundMe involved, but I get it. Like, who wants to just send me money via Venmo? It's much safer on your guys' end for the internet to send the money through GoFundMe to a stranger than just directly to me. So I get it. So we still have to use GoFundMe, but that is why you'll see what Tyler was explaining. Anyways, let me not go on a spiel about being anti-GoFundMe. A lot of great causes are on there, and I get that it's got to be a vessel, but anyway, be sure to check that out in the description. But yeah, Steelers episode this week, we were kicking around the idea of what exactly we were going to be talking about this week. Not necessarily like a bunch of news to talk about, unlike last week. Obviously, we had the big trade, but we did get an extension. Not maybe the one that we've been waiting for, but we did get an extension within the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. GM Omar Khan signing a 3-year extension. And honestly, I guess I kind of expected that there would be two sides to this coin here from the fan base. The negative reaction towards it, though, I wanted to get your opinion on. I guess Omar Khan's tenure in general, if you felt like right now was the time to extend him, just your general thoughts on Omar Khan's body of work and how we got to the point where he's earned an extension.
So I've always been a supporter of Omar Khan since he has been named the general manager of the Steelers. I thought that it was a breath of fresh air from what you were getting from Kevin Colbert at the position, considering looking at the first draft that he had. I thought that he, on paper, knocked it out of the park, and I think that a lot of those picks have played out in that same way. And I feel like that's continued in his draft classes. And I feel like 2025 may be a little lower in some people's eyes compared to the other two, maybe just because of the name recognition of a lot of the draft picks. But I feel like it was just another solid work of a draft for Omar Khan. And I think he's made some moves that in season I have also liked, and in free agency as well. Bringing in a guy like Deshaun Elliott, which we rave about, and he actually got an extension earlier this offseason. That's something that I think it was a big move. And then also, if you want to go all the way back to 2023, it's crazy that, to me, it seems like so much longer ago. One of the, I guess, big significant trades that Omar Khan made early in his tenure as the GM is trading Chase Claypool and getting a 2023 second-round pick for him. That's good work. And then what he had to deal with the whole George Pickens saga and moving him to Dallas. Getting them in a position where they had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson last year, and now Aaron Rodgers. I mean, trying to figure out that quarterback's position. It's been a battle. It's been a challenge for the Steelers. And so even though last year Russell Wilson didn't necessarily work out, we wanted to keep Justin Fields around. Weren't expecting to have Aaron Rodgers at least at the end of last season to start 2025. But I feel like overall Omar Khan has done a solid job at the GM spot for the Steelers. And I wouldn't necessarily have thought that he needed an extension yet based off of his work, but I feel like it is deserved to a certain degree because I feel like I was mentioning, his drafts have been very solid. He's gotten several starters from each of his drafts, which for several years, especially the later years of the Kevin Colbert area, I feel like the drafts were kind of diminishing in a way in terms of the quality that you were getting from them. And then even just the aggressiveness that Omar Khan has displayed, it was kind of like a culture shift for the Steelers in being able to be more aggressive in free agency. Bringing in guys like Patrick Queen is something that I don't necessarily think the Steelers have a history of doing, at least in recent history. And being able to make moves that would seem aggressive, like making the trade that they did just last week, bringing in Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, sending Minkah Fitzpatrick out the door. I feel like that's a trade that in years past, the Steelers don't even think about because there's too much tradition. There's too much I don't want to say there's too much loyalty to the players, but if the guy's already in Steelers uniform, I feel like there's a good chance that he is sticking around. And so I just feel like the culture shift that Omar Khan brought from the general manager position, whether people agree with it or not, was at least a refreshing look in my mind. And that's how I view him right now, is that it's been a lot different the past 2.5 seasons since he's been named the general manager than I feel like what we were used to with Kevin Colbert. And I'm okay with the extension just because I feel like for the majority of what he's done in his tenure, I've agreed with it, and a lot of it has panned out.
I think, the timeline was always going to be tough because I think based off the amount of turnover that they've had this year, you can make the argument like, hey, let's see how these sweeping changes are going to pay off. Like, they're taking big swings at certain spots. Obviously, the DK Metcalf, how's Aaron Rodgers going to play? How's this Minkah Fitzpatrick trade going to turn out? Are we going to look like idiots for making that move? How are all the pieces going to fit? With everything that they've turned over, I think you can make the argument, like, let's see what this year looks like. But at the same time, he would have been due for an extension next year. And he was always, or in my opinion, should have always been given the shot to see what that next quarterback looks like. Like, he should be given the shot to throw a dart at the board at that most important position, see what that looks like. And you're not going to have an answer on that in that guy's rookie season anyway. So realistically, if you're looking at year 2, year 3 of that quarterback, that's when this extension goes to anyway. So, like, I'm not all up in arms about this because like you're saying, regardless of if it ends up panning out, I think you can look at how they're placing value in positions, the way that they've at least made the investments to try to rebuild the trenches. Now, is it going to pan out? That comes down to coaching and the players, and obviously the evaluation of the players that they're selecting. But there's been a very conscious effort to address the trenches. And I feel like just in general, they're doing a nice job rebuilding this roster. All credit to what Kevin Colbert was as a whole in the body of work there. But, we're in agreement, and I think that it's pretty widely considered that he didn't do a great job at the end of his tenure. I don't think he did a great job in terms of evolving with the game. I think he was still always of the mindset, just get the best player, doesn't matter the position that they play. And that's when you get the case of like a Najee Harris selection where, I'm not trying to take away from what Najee did. From durability standpoint, certainly, but like people bring up the 1,000 yards thing. Okay, that's like 57 rushing yards per game in a 17-game season. The best thing that he brought to the table was the durability. And they put, they didn't have the offensive line in place when they selected him too. So certainly nothing against Najee, but was not the right selection at the time, certainly. And that's just one example of this. But I just think Omar had a lot of work to clean up in the early years, and we're still in the process of doing so to turn this roster over. And again, it's all going to come down to that quarterback. That one move is really going to define what the Omar Khan era is anyway. Like, the rest of these could hit. If the quarterback doesn't, it's going to be pretty much meaningless, as bad as that sounds.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, looking back at the past drafts that I was alluding to, you look back at 2023, getting Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig. I mean, the first round pick, Broderick Jones, I'm hesitant to throw in there just because I feel like he's such a polarizing figure right now in the Steelers organization. We'll see how he pans out in 2025 in year 3. But even the next year, Troy Fautano we both feel like it was a great pick, just had his rookie year taken away from him with the injury. Zach Frazier, Peyton Wilson. I mean, Mason McCormick, we both have said that we are hesitant on just naming him the starter right away, but that's somebody that at least in a 4th-round pick, you got a lot of snaps out of last year and are projected to get a lot of that out of this year. And then there's several guys that we've talked about earlier this year with the 2025 draft. All of that is for naught if they don't hit on the quarterback. So the defining moment of Omar Khan's career, assuming that the plan goes to the way that we're thinking it's going to, with 2026 being that year that they're going to take a big swing for quarterback, everything from 2023 to now is all for naught if he does not hit on his quarterback pick. If he gets a 1st-round selection, because Kenny Pickett wasn't his. That was the last year of Kevin Colbert. That was not his 1st-round pick. So he hasn't had a notable quarterback selection, despite what a lot of Steeler fans want to say about Will Howard. And I feel like that's going to be the defining moment in his career for the Steelers. If he's able to find somebody that can be that next franchise guy, and I don't even want to say franchise guy. If he can find somebody that can be a plus starter for 5+ years, that I feel like that's even better than what they've gotten recently and what they've been able to find recently. And I want to be hesitant about throwing the franchise tag around. No pun intended with franchise tag. The franchise like moniker around, just because you drafting a franchise player, you're thinking they're going to play for close to 20 years. I feel like that's a big expectation to have. But if you're drafting a quarterback that can help your team and be a significant starter for 6, 7, 8 seasons, then I feel like that it would be a win for Omar Khan. But if it's the latter, and if he does not find that quarterback, or if he misses next year, selects one and it doesn't pan out, then that pretty much changes the tone of what Omar Khan's career is going to be like with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that's the big position. That's the big piece. That would be the big draft pick in the defining moment of his career.
Yeah, and the reason that I mentioned like the timeline of it thing is, okay, you draft a quarterback in 26, regardless of what that quarterback looks like right away, you know they're going to get 2027. And then, so even if it doesn't go well, you saw Omar Khan's extension is through 2028. So you talked about maybe 1 year that already wasn't guaranteed where you'd have him under contract for. Like, so I don't see the big deal about giving him a 3-year extension right now. Again, I think it's, I don't know if unfortunate's the right word, but I get people saying they would have wanted to see this year play out because of everything that they've turned over. But at the same time, he was always going to be here beyond next year. So like whether they did it right now or after the draft next year, this extension was coming. Might as well do it now, get it out of the way. And it's one more piece of business taken care of. So yeah, I mean, he's done more right than wrong. He's done more good than bad. The one thing that I will say that I typically look at as like a mark of a good GM or a bad GM is every team is going to have holes in their roster. And obviously like the best teams are just able to minimize those or, you know, in some way make them not as noticeable. For the Steelers, they've had obviously the hole at the wide receiver room, and it's not just 1 year. Like, so a good GM, when they have those holes, they identify them in the next year. It's no longer a hole on the roster. In the case of the Steelers, as we sit here right now on July 8th, this has been the thing now for multiple seasons in a row, like potentially going into a second straight season where we're like, what's the deal with this wide receiver room? So I think that is the one area where I look at and I'm like, I really have not been able to align with whatever the vision is here for this position.
I agree with that. I think that a lot of us have looked at going back to last season and disagreed with the way that they handled the wide receiver position, because we saw guys go in free agency that the Steelers could have potentially signed, and they were pre-draft, post-draft, late in the summer getting signed, and the Steelers put all of their eggs in one basket, and that didn't work out. And that's okay to a certain degree, But to have that continuation and that same problem going into this season as well, then that's alarming. That's a red flag. We disagreed with the process last summer, and then it's kind of continued to a certain degree going into this summer. He did make a move for DK Metcalf, which we applaud, but with George Pickens being traded to the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm not going to blame Omar Khan for having to move George Pickens. It is what it is. But they're kind of just in the same boat that they were. They didn't address it in the draft, which I'm not saying that they necessarily had to. We had discussions earlier this year about how this draft was really 3 or 4 guys at the top of wide receiver and then a big crapshoot everywhere in the middle. And so I understand why they went the way they went in the draft. I understand why that they've moved the way they moved to a certain degree. But if he's not able to figure out something at wide receiver, at least by next draft, then that's going to be questionable. We're hoping that they figure something out by the start of the 2025 season.
But at least better than what's on the roster right now. I don't think you can just go into the season with the roster as is and convince people that that's okay. Like, I've said this before. I don't know if I said it on here, but like Roman Wilson taking a massive leap, Calvin Austin continuing to grow and expand upon what he did last year. Those are things that should be like welcome surprises. Like, hey, if they happen, great. They shouldn't be things that you're like completely banking on to get like serviceable play out of a wide receiver room.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I feel like if you're banking on a lot of things hitting to have a successful season, then I feel like you're kind of just setting yourself up for failure in that light. And I feel like that's what they did in a certain way last season when it came to the wide receiver position. And because of the way that the thing with George Pickens played out, they have put themselves into a similar scenario. So, yeah, you've got to find somebody to bring in to help the 2025 season. But going back to the Omar Khan discussion, like, that is like the one light that I would say is darker than the others when it comes to his tenure with the Steelers, is that he just hasn't been able to find a game changer at that position.
What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Boy, am I glad that you also played the video and didn't just say that assuming that I was going to click it, because I was not ready at all. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. The one thing that I will say is we talked about the draft. We've mentioned this in the past, was I felt like that 4th round pick was a prime spot to take a receiver. And, you know, I think the difference there, as opposed to the safety thing that we had a discussion about, is you could have drafted a player there that immediately would have been like your starting Z receiver. If you draft a safety in the 4th round, I don't think that's somebody that's probably starting over one Thornhill right now. I think whoever you draft in that, like, let's just say, you know, it was Ayomanor that they drafted. That guy's starting at Z right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think that's the difference. But going with Jack Sawyer, that's how we'll transition this conversation, getting to the edge rushers right now. We didn't spend a lot of time last week talking about the TJ thing. That's obviously still floating in the air. It's obviously still a pertinent topic because he has not signed an extension. I wanted to have a conversation about this just because I keep seeing like, it seems like every single day it's put out there by somebody that it's not close. And I think while that's true, you should take that 2 ways, because, like, at least from everything that I've heard, they're there on an average per year basis. Like, they know what that number is going to be. The hang up is going to be with the guarantees, which I think is what we all considered. And it's not like that is some small thing. Like, that is very important, obviously. And they're going to continue to tussle over what that number is going to be. I think we have, like, just look at Steelers history. Have they ever gone into a 3rd year of fully guaranteed money? No. I think that TJ is looking to break the mold on the structure of those contracts. I think it's a done deal if he was willing to sign for 2 years guaranteed. And I think it's a done deal if the Steelers were willing to go to 3 guaranteed. Conventional wisdom, just being a human being and the way things typically work, would tell me, okay, let's do 2.5, which is like $103 million of that contract guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if that ends up being what happens. But I want to put that out there because I keep seeing not close. And while that's true, I mean, you're talking about a $41 million difference potentially if it's a full second year and a full third year that they're not able to agree upon. Like they're there though in terms of the average per year. We know he's going to beat Myles Garrett's number by how much? Maybe exactly 1 million. Maybe it is 41 million, which would make him the highest paid non-quarterback because Jamar Chase right now is at 40.25 million. So even if he gets 40.5 per year, he'd actually be the highest paid non-quarterback. So we'll see if that's the number that they go to. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it all plays out, but I'll be stunned, like absolutely stunned if he doesn't sign the extension. Somebody asked a question, like, what's the fan reception going to be like at training camp? Because it's probably going to be similar to 21 in terms of him being there but not doing anything. I feel like this time around, there's more fans that are open to the idea of TJ Watt not being here than there was last time. Last time it was just like, let's just pay him, like, because of his age and everything like that. And also, I would just like thoughts keep coming to my head here. The average fan, I think, is really scared away by that $40 million number, like just the raw number, without like looking into it more and realizing, oh, if you look at it as a percentage of the cap, it's actually a lower number than what he was playing on before. But like the average fan just sees $40 million as opposed to $28 million, and they're running away from that.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to unpack there. I feel like the guarantees, in my opinion, if the Steelers value TJ Watt that much, shouldn't matter. Like having it on that third year. And that's what I think the question will come down to is how much do the Steelers value having TJ Watt on their team? Because in my mind, if this is a guy that is one of the great pillars of your franchise, has been a great player for you for a long time, I feel like your normal mold shouldn't matter. And considering who he is, what he means to this team, the position that he does play, having guarantees going into a third year shouldn't matter for the Steelers. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that that's the way they have to think, but that's my opinion. I feel like if we're a player of TJ Watt's caliber, but also what he means to the franchise and to the city, I feel like that the normal way you operate should kind of be thrown out the window for certain guys, and TJ Watt falls into that category. And I do feel like it is, from a fan perspective, going to be, I don't know what the right word is, not necessarily more hostile at training camp, but there is a large chunk of the fan base now that is more open to moving on from TJ Watt than what was in 2021, which, I mean, in 2021, he tied the all-time sack leader. So, well, you obviously saw why they needed to pay him then. I still feel like they need to pay him now, but you're right. There is a large chunk of the fan base that is more okay with not getting this done, more open to the idea of not having TJ Watt on the Steelers, which makes me curious about what they are planning for the future at the position and for the defense. I mean, if they were to not extend TJ Watt, and then essentially if they're not extending him, I feel like that's writing on the wall that he's not coming back in a Steeler uniform. That losing guys like Minka and TJ in back-to-back seasons, I'm not saying necessarily that that's going to be a bad thing for football.
And then potentially Cam,
but just
as well, because of age.
Yeah, you're losing a lot of the heart of that defense, all within a quick time span. And so I feel like the Steelers and Steeler fans, more specifically, should probably tread lightly whenever it comes to being okay with TJ Watt not being here. Now, like I said, in my very biased fan opinion, I would just pay him the guarantees. I'd pay him the money and then figure it out. And I know I'm saying that knowing that his body could diminish faster than someone like Myles Garrett is going to. But you're not necessarily paying them for it. It always comes down to, like, are you paying them for what they were or what they have been or what they're going to be? I feel like if you're paying them for what they're going to be, nobody's ever going to get a bigger second contract than what they already had at this stage in his career. And so I feel like you're paying him, and you kind of have to look at it for what he has been and what he has been to not just the football team, but to the city in general. And that's why I feel like you should get this done. And I'm curious, do you think term has any issue with it at all? Like, do you think that TJ would want more than 3 years, or is 3 years pretty much the standard that everybody's talking about?
No, I mean, I think from a guaranteed perspective, I think that's the sticking point. But like, they might want to stretch this out longer to, reduce the cap hits in more years. Maybe, like void years became very common going back to 2020 with the way not just the Steelers, but everybody started conducting business. So it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to structure it that way as well. So, I mean, they could try to drag this thing out as a 5 or 6 year contract, to be honest with you, just to really, lessen those cap hits.
Maybe they'll Bobby Bonilla the
game. Yeah, be paying him in like 2050. The one argument that I'm willing to hear, and you kind of mentioned it there in terms of the body thing, is, whether it be because of injury or whatever, we've seen in 3 seasons in a row now the performance not be there at the end of the year. 2022, he tore his pec, obviously, in year 1, and very clearly wasn't the same player even when he was able to come back. 23, he got hurt at the end of the season and then was not available to them in their playoff game against Buffalo. Not that would have mattered, but I mean, still, to not have your best player in the field in the playoff game, that sucks. And then last year gets hurt in the Eagles game and is pretty much a ghost for the last month of the season. Like, that has to be a talking point. Like, would I still give TJ this contract that we're talking about? Yes. But I understand that being part of the conversation from the fan base, if they have the opinion that they do, that they don't necessarily feel like TJ needs to be a one helmet guy, and also for the team in terms of negotiating this thing. Like, this should absolutely be part of the conversation, in my opinion. So, I mean, in terms of, like you said, about moving on, though, if that were to happen, they don't have like that ready-made guy to fill that role. I mean, you talked about platooning it, in my opinion, like Jack Sawyer as your rundown edge and Nick Herbig as your pass rush specialist in that spot. And you still need to add another player, in my opinion, even with that being the case. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of angles to tackle this from, but from a money perspective, like, I'll be honest, not that I'm saying like to hand out a bad contract or anything like that, but when you're not paying a quarterback, like, this is the time when you can afford to make this type of decision and pay this contract out. By the time TJ's going to have his guaranteed money on this deal paid out, you're maybe paying that quarterback if you hit on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I feel like you've got to, and that's been the case for not just TJ, but the defense in general. All of the money's been spent on the defense because the contracts on the offensive side of the ball are so young. And but yeah, going into the smaller in the microscope, if you're just looking at a TJ Watt extension, comparing it to the quarterback, like, yeah, you should be okay with paying this money while your potential first round quarterback is going to be on a guaranteed deal for 4 or 5 years. I mean, hopefully it's 5 years. But you want to be able to utilize that cap space while you're going to have it, which you see a lot of teams do around the league when they have these rookie contracts or these rookie quarterbacks. So it would make a ton of sense. I ultimately think that a deal is going to get done. I feel like there's just been a lot of talk, and I feel like a lot of it has been, I don't want to say misconstrued, but I feel like it's kind of overblown, at least in my mind. And I'm not as connected as you are, so maybe you disagree with that. I just feel like a lot of it has to be overblown with some of the way that the national media has been talking about the TJ Watt thing. Some of the way that people say that, like, maybe there's a potential that they could trade him. In my mind, that's being a little exaggerated and a little overblown. But again, like I said, I don't necessarily fully know. I just have a hard time believing that the Steelers would let it get to that point.
Yeah, we'll see what training camp's gonna be like. I think it's gonna be interesting. He's gonna be there, like, whether he's doing something. I can't imagine he's gonna take on those fines. Like, mini camp is one thing, training camp's a whole new ball game in terms of the amount that you get fined for not being there. So I would anticipate him being there. Level of participation, I'm expecting it to be like 21, where he wasn't doing anything. But look at how he played. I understand we're a few years removed from that. He's a few years older now. I just don't think that's going to be the determining factor with performance. So We'll see what happens there if a deal gets done. Again, I'm expecting it to. I just, I think I've said this before on here as well. I'll get your opinion on this. It wouldn't surprise me if Omar Khan was open to moving TJ Watt, but I don't think Tomlin and Rooney would be open to it. And I think that holds more weight. Well,
I think that's a
obviously
fair
more
assessment.
weight that Rooney, that Rooney.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair assessment. And I especially feel like the Rooney side of that is going to be that case, because I feel like Rooney probably knows what this guy means to the franchise, and so it's probably a similar, not to relate it to the Penguins, but like when you talk about trading a guy, and I'm not saying that TJ Watt is even close to what this guy means to the franchise for the Penguins, but like trading like an Evgeny Malkin, I feel like it's probably a similar moniker where even if Kyle Dubas is going to be open to it, I just feel like there's so many people in that organization that would shut that down. Be like, I don't think we should do this. I just don't think that's good for the franchise. That's how I would view it, and view Rooney's perspective of it. Tomlin too. I mean, Tomlin and TJ seem to have like a great relationship, get along well. Been playing for him for a long time, so I imagine Tomlin would back his player.
Of been like the messaging too is like, he wasn't there for minicamp, or we haven't seen TJ yet. Like if he shows up the training camp, this will be the first time that we've seen TJ since the end of the season. But by all accounts, like he's been in contact with everybody. So like I don't think that there's like this bad blood. You know, business can get ugly at times, and I'm sure it's frustrating, but it doesn't seem like it's gotten to the point. Like he hasn't requested a trade even or anything like that. Like look at the statement that Myles Garrett put out before they came to a contract extension. We have not seen that from TJ Watt. We've seen some messaging through his brother, basically. But like this, for people that think like this is ugly, no. I mean, this is just like standard negotiation that's going on here. So I don't know. Maybe it gets uglier as we go deeper and deeper into this. But at least right now, I don't think that we're even like scratching the surface of how ugly this could have gotten or maybe will get.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Ultimately, like I said, I think something gets done. I think it gets done sooner than later. Like maybe they don't have a deal going into training camp, but by the time training camp's over, I imagine one is done. And I think you're right. He will show up because he's going to be fine. Like,
okay, so I guess that's an important thing. Like, if he doesn't, okay, now we might.
And that's more writing on the wall. Yeah. That kind of answers how serious it actually is. But if he doesn't, I mean, I just looked this up because I wasn't sure what the number was. He's fined $50,000 a day.
Yeah,
for not showing up to training camp over 3 weeks. That's like $1 million.
Mini camp is like a little over $100,000 in total. So vastly different. And regardless, if you end up signing to a contract, like they'll end up waiving those. Maybe they already did waive those mini camp ones and just say, TJ, we know what's going on. But like these training camp ones are very different. So if he doesn't show up even for that, and I'm not saying practice, just even be there, I think that's going to be more of a statement than anything that's happened so far. More than the Instagram post, more than his brother talking about it on Pat McAfee show. That'll be the defining statement, is if he does not show up to training camp.
I agree with that.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about Steelers-wise? I don't think so.
I don't think so. There's not a ton going on since that trade has happened. Like we mentioned, that the Omar Khan is really the only significant news, and then continue to talk about TJ Watt and his extension. There really isn't anything outside of continuing the wide receiver conversation or anything like that that would be considered significant, I guess. So nothing right now, at least.
I'm sticking with my prediction that Gabe Davis is going to be Pittsburgh Steeler, and we'll see if they circle back on the Julian Blackmon thing, because I would love for them to do so.
Do you think that the Gabe Davis thing will happen before training camp?
Yeah. I think he's just, whether it's with the Steelers or somebody else, I think he's just signed either the week, so I guess next week would be the week before training camp. Either next week or like a couple days before. So maybe that Monday or Tuesday, something like that. And then he'll just meet him in Latrobe.
Okay. I mean, I would like for the saga to be over. Even if it's not the wide receiver that people are going to be thrilled about. I will just be happy that we don't have to continue the conversation anymore. We don't have to wonder who it's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, you're only talking about a 1-year Band-Aid, and then you're right back in that well where, like, well, hopefully, Roman takes a leap and Calvin Austin figures it out even more and takes another leap. And although he would need an extension if you're going to keep him around. So we'll see. But like the long term of that position is still very much up in the air, even if you sign Gabe Davis. That's not a long-term fix.
At least for this season, I could be done talking about it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Let us know in the comments how you feel about anything we talked about today. Omar Khan's extension, TJ Watt's potential extension, where you're at with the wide receiver room. Is that the one glaring hole when you look at Omar Khan's tenure so far that you're circling looking at? Also, going to be running another giveaway, and I kind of want to get your guys' input on how we should do it. We've been doing, obviously, through Twitter, but you have to be subscribed to the YouTube page. I don't know. I kind of have been thinking about trying to find a way to differentiate from that and include more audiences, but let us know what you think. Jalen Ramsey T over at Game Changers now. So that's what we're going to be running a giveaway for. We did Aaron last time. Jalen Ramsey T dropped. They actually have 2 different designs. One is just like the single-sided. The other one's double-sided with a 5 Ramsey on the back. And then inside the 5, it's more pictures of Jalen. So pretty slick looking design. But go check out that. Go check out all the other stuff at Game Changers. Didn't tell you about Keith's Barbershop yet. So Game Changers, in terms of my bookmarks here that I look at on my computer, they absolutely make the cut. Smitty from around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keith at Keith's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keith's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keith's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Be sure to check out Keek as well. The link to that is also in the description. And then, of course, right above Tyler right now, Marcelo Electric, our friend Brandon Marcelo, AK Boots, his small business, serving Beaver, Allegheny, Lawrence, and Butler County. Whether it's residential, commercial, or a service call, he's got you covered. Hit him up, 724-614-0611. Again, that's Marcelo Electric, 724-614-0611. Link in the description to his Facebook page. You can see his work, all his information, how to get in contact with him. Even though I just read it there, it's also on the Facebook page as well. And regardless of where you're watching or listening, if you check out the description, you'll see the GoFundMe link, as we talked about at the top, for year 8 of rocking around the 412. 177 kids since 2018 have had their Christmas provided to them thanks to this mission. We want to keep it going. We're going to cross 200 kids this year. We're going to cross $40,000 raised this year. We're very excited about it. Thank you to those that have already donated as well. We got a little over $500 raised so far in the first week since launching it. So shout out to you if you've been a part of that. Can't thank you guys enough. Very appreciative of that, and just very appreciative of the support that we've gotten since we started doing this mission. It's been awesome to see. We love doing it. It's the most impactful thing that we do. It's our baby. So anybody that's been a part of it, can't thank you enough for doing so. And let's keep rolling this year. Again, link in the description for that as well. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're listening somewhere else, leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Regardless of what you're watching or listening, go do the other. Totally free. Best way to support us. So be sure to do that. And then hit us up on all of our social medias as well at Around the 412. Not every social media platform, but anyone that anybody actually opens up, we're probably there. So hit us up over there. And then you'll find us individually at Weiler_Teach33 and at Zachary Smith PGH. All right, that's it for Tyler, for Smitty. This has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.